As you guys know, I'm a huge fan of gliders, force feedback, and the world's greatest racetrack, the Nordschleife. So, I decided to combine all three to see if we could do an entire lap of the Nürburgring using only the power of the sun, the power of the wind, and the power of a V8 winch launch at a local airfield. Can we make it to the track? Will we make it around the track? And can we land with an intact spinal column? That is what we're going to find out using Microsoft Flight Sim 24 and a beautiful Got Friends glider. Subscribe so you can unsubscribe when I say something bad about your favourite game. For the freshest tea bags you've ever experienced, click the like button. And thank you to all our subscribers and channel members that allow us to play games in ways that nobody cares about. Before we got flying, we had to find the nearest airport to the Nordschleife, and that turns out to be Flugplatz Hinterwehr, a phenomenal airport that has everything that you could possibly need. We also needed to plan our route from the airport round the Nordschleife and then back to the airport so that we don't get lost and so we have a bit of a path to follow. And look, you can see my joystick's already excited. You might not know this, but every flight in Microsoft Flight Sim involves skydiving from a hot air balloon. I think it's a bit extreme, but it's a very fun way to get to your aeroplane. There's our glider on the runway, ready to winch launch, and just let's take a moment to appreciate this bustling airfield. It's almost too much to take in. That beeping sound isn't a smoke alarm, it's the flarm, and that's really what it's called, and that tells you if you're about to fly into another aircraft or an object on the ground. Turn that off, I like to live dangerously. We've set the weather to be 10 knots of wind and to have some sunshine and clouds so we can see where the thermals will be. These are totally reasonable, realistic weather conditions for this location, and we've actually made things a bit tricky for ourselves because I wouldn't want to make it too easy. I like a challenge. We wiggle the tail and we get ready for our winch launch. Please close your eyes. I'm not proud of this moment. Wings scraping on the ground. Off we go into the air, and winch cable detached. I think I forgot that we've also got to retract the landing gear. There it is. Beautiful. Totally seamless, high-skilled takeoff. The only problem now is we're only a few hundred foot above the ground and we have 8 miles to get to the Nordschleife, so we need to find some lift, and some lift quickly. Though this is a glider and can do 52 metres for every 1 metre that it drops, we're really not that high. But we're going to meander over to the hillside in front of us and hope we get some lift from that, but also look for light patches on the ground. There's a sort of open pit mine in front of us as well, and they normally collect heat and then release that heat in the upward direction. So they're good options if you want to stay in the air. To nip it in the bud, because I know you guys are going to ask, what is that beeping noise? Well, the beeping is coming from the vario, which tells you if you're going up in lift or down in sink. Up is a happy chirpy beep, and down is a miserable dull tone. That if you go down enough, turns from a dull tone into a glass fibre crunchy sound, followed by severe back pain. So let's keep those chirps in the beepty boopty range. But right now the vario's giving us 1 foot per minute of climb, so we're circling in that thermal to try and get as high as we can. I think we're also getting a little bit of lift as well from the small ridge that's there. So this is good. We just needed to get anything we could to get us above the ground here, because that winch launch did not get us very high at all. Now, we weren't getting much lift there, and I didn't want to spend an entire week flying around a open pit mine. So we decided that we got enough altitude and we're going to risk it for a biscuit and head towards the next little bits of hills, and also towards those beautiful fluffy clouds with the dark underside on them, as those typically indicate where there's likely to be more lift. And this is also, very conveniently, in the direction of the Nordschleife. So off we went towards the racetrack. Look, I mean, look at that cloud there. absolutely perfect. That was the target. Worth actually saying as well, often forests and lakes and things tend to have quite a bit of sink on them. But we had no choice. We just had to go for it. We've got a place to go, a place to be. We made it under the cloud and above that little forest, and sadly, we've only got 0.7 foot per minute of lift. It's something, I will take it, but it really is breadcrumbs of lift. We are starving for lift here. We have to make it to the racetrack, and it's not been easy. This called for drastic measures, and that measure is to take the water out of the glider. Yes, gliders are indeed filled with water that acts as ballast that you can then dump on unsuspecting people that are walking below. It's not actually to help fly or do anything with gliders, it's just to annoy people underneath you. The UK is actually a very dry country. There's just a lot of glider pilots. But we got rid of the water there to lighten the glider up, and that means that it's not going to fly as fast, but it's easier for the glider to get lift. The glider's lighter, it requires less energy to lift it up. Lower speed, more lift, but we're not in the ground. So it's a fair compromise. We didn't actually take that much water out of the glider, probably only like 10% of it. Probably should have taken even more out of it, but I have no idea what I'm doing. But that's the great thing about flight simulators. You can just mess around and see what happens, and gradually you'll get better, or not. Who cares? It's good fun. But with that water taken out, or a little bit of water taken out, we started to climb even higher, and this is looking absolutely fantastic for us to make a run for the Nordschleife. And whilst we're doing this turn as well, let's just appreciate this view of the Eifel region of Germany and the countryside. How spectacular is that? Trees, grass, clouds, blue sky. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I would love to fly around this area in real life. Height anxiety diminished, and just coming into view on the left hand side here, a roller coaster ride that was only ever ridden once, and the Nürburgring GP circuit. Also, we got such good lift from those thermals that I was really quite confident now. I'd gone from a state of we're definitely not making it to, oh, this seems like it's actually reasonably possible. In Flight Sim 24, once you've got about 2,000 foot or more altitude, it's a lot easier to find the thermals and ride it out, so it's pretty comfortable then. But when you get to 1,000 foot or below, it really is squeaky bum time, unless there's a nice ridge with the wind blowing on it. What do you know? There is the beginning of the Nordschleife, the GP track to our left, and underneath us is the castle that you'll all be aware of. Unfortunately, the castle's not actually in Flight Sim. I think we need to modify that in. But we're making our way here now down the beginning of the Nordschleife. It's right below us. We need like one of those canoes with a glass floor on it. Maybe there are some gliders with a glass floor so we can see underneath us without having to peer over the window. If you've got a VR headset, you can look out the sides. But you can see the track there going down to the right, the beginning of the Nordschleife. And into the distance, you can see the heavy braking zone for the right-hander. Really fun, fast-flowing part of the track where everybody crashes in the simulators on the first lap. I don't know why. It always catches them out. It's not even the first corner. It's like the fourth corner. But it's the one where everyone just understeers off into the gravel. Main concern in the glider here, though, is keeping our eyes out for lift. You can see we've got a nice cloud with a dark bottom on it in front of us, so that's an option. And we're generally at a pretty decent altitude, and we also are getting some ridge lift off these hills as well. So we're pretty comfortable on the glider side of things, allowing us to just take in the absolutely gorgeous view. And flying the Nordschleife like this just gives you such an appreciation for how insane of a racetrack the Nordschleife is. Just the height, the corners, the length of it. When you're driving a car around it, obviously you can tell you're going up and down, especially in VR, but really you kind of don't have the overview context that you'll only get if you fly over something like this. And look at that as well. Some magical lift. I don't even know what that came from, but that was a nice gift. It was probably exhaust fumes from some cars driving around. So I start circling a bit here to try and take advantage of it and just get what we can, just in case we do start dropping out of the sky. Highly unrealistic, but I thought you might like an external view of our beautiful glider. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That is peak engineering. Now, if you know the Nordschleife, on the right is the bit of track that has that flat tree and the left-hander that's quite a tricky left-hander. You tend to understeer off the track into the Armco. And then the downhill section where it gets really aggressively steep. I believe the start of the downhill section is called Kellen Hard, and that's because if you were Helen Keller, you would find this part of the track very difficult. But again, from this height, you can just see how much it does indeed dip down into Versifen. Sorry, I don't speak German, but that part of the track where, you know, you go right down where there's some buildings and some restaurants just before you start having to go into the entire uphill section of the track. But look how the Nordschleife meanders through the hillsides. Now they've had to build it between the hills as best possible. I think all the best racetracks are built around terrain. When you build a racetrack on a flat piece of desert or concrete, it doesn't work, does it? But this is where all the character comes from, the geography, and it makes sense. All the best racetracks, and it's also with the gliding, it's the locations, it's the geography, it's the combination of man-made structures with nature and man destroying that nature but pretending that it's in charge of nature. That is the joy of these things and the whole point. Also worth noting, if you've ever been around the track, this part of the track is where the engines go to die. Just this whole section in a road car is just a car going as it suffers up the hill. But oh my goodness, the view, bloody spectacular. And also how it's like in a valley on a hill. It's valley inception. Let me just give you a moment to appreciate the view and the sound of the wind blowing over the glider cockpit. If this isn't peak ASMR, I don't know what is. Wake up! It's the carousel! Look at that! I bet you didn't think it went back on itself so much when you drive around it. You probably thought you were going back towards the start line. Nope, the track is tricking you. You're driving away from the start line when you go around the carousel. And if you're at the track, you can see the footpath around there, so it's a good spectator spot to be able to see a car on one side, run across, and then see it again. So that beats out one of the worst parts of being a racetrack spectator. You'd have to wait an entire 7 minutes in this case to see the car again. Maybe drivers see a spectator as they drive past, and then they see the exact same spectator again, and they're like, oh my god, deja vu! And that's how a lot of people crash in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Interestingly as well, you can see the car parks and campsites there. During the 24-hour races, you have these little spots where they tend to be designated spectator spots. And so you can use Flight Sim to plan your next 24 hours of the Nordschleife and where you'd like to view the race from. What a great feature of this simulator. And you can also see here the light all the way down to the GP track, but you can see where at points the racetrack comes so close to public roads. And again, just the sheer insane scale. There's multiple villages surrounding this track and inside of this racetrack. Underneath us on the right, one of my favourite corners on the track, it's just a follow through. You sort of straight line it and just clip the curbing on the inside, followed by later on the uphill right-hander and the second carousel before you get onto the Dottinger Ho-Hee. That's what I call it. Nobody else does. But I love this last section of the Nordschleife with the flow of it. And then with the long straight, a great opportunity to have a sip of tea in your sim rig and think about the impending doom of the cars surrounding you that have drafted you and inevitably will not brake for the final few corners, ruining your entire race. But you know, that's the joy of the Nordschleife. Underneath us as well here on the right, you actually have a few car companies and dealerships and what have you. That's something you probably don't notice in the simulators, but if you're there in real life and you've got the bridge actually underneath, that's a way to get to the Toysfarten entrance. You can see it all. You can see it all from the air in Microsoft Flight Sim. And we are still in the air. I'd like to point out that we are in a glider again. You might have forgotten due to the excitement of seeing the Nordschleife from this altitude. We have maintained a fairly decent altitude of a few thousand foot as we make our way down the Dottinger Ho-Hee towards the GP track, and we've managed to find some magical lift here. You can hear the Vario beeping away. I don't know where this lift's coming from. I think the weather was just being especially kind to us. The wind is blowing from our right here, and there are hills on the right. There actually are some ski slopes that were used years ago. If you ever walk around this part of the racetrack and walk around the castle on the hill, there's some signs there showing people sledging and skiing down the slopes. I don't think it snows enough for people to ski there anymore. Maybe sometimes it does. But yeah, so maybe we're getting some ridge lift from the wind blowing on those slopes. They're not the biggest of slopes. I think we're still just being very, very lucky with thermals. And also, if you think about it, a racetrack is a huge chunk of concrete that will be releasing a lot of heat. So actually, racetracks not only good for driving cars around, but if you happen to be in a bind for thermals in a glider, just head over to your local racetrack. Probably controlled airspace, probably swarming with helicopters filming a race. So a real risk of you destroying helicopters and landing on a crowd of people. A real risk of life imprisonment. But in this case, I need the altitude because we have 8 miles to get back to the airport. The wind is slightly behind us now, slightly off to our right. So we should be okay if we keep getting lucky thermals. But there you go. That was a full tour of the Nordschleife, and the first ever, I believe, unpowered, excluding the V8 winch launch. Yes, winch launches do use a V8 in cases, but excluding the Winch launch, we've gone German now, it's in the air. I'm eating a doner kebab in my glider as we fly. Excluding the winch launch, unpowered lap of the Nordschleife. I can't believe we did it. I was quite emotional. I would cry, but we've already used all our water ballast, so we've got no water left to cry. But let's circle the Nordschleife here. Helicopter pad on top of the hotel there. Never noticed that before. And let's see if we can get back to the airport that we took off from to complete this epic mission. Oh, also on the right there, it's the test track with the skid pads and the skid, the little skid tracks for those of you that want to do a driver experience. I'm not sure if it's a Porsche one or maybe it's a Mercedes one. I don't know, but that's a nice thing to see from the air that you might not have been aware of. Let's head back to our home airport and see if we can stick the landing. There it is on the left. Just in the distance, you can see the beautiful facilities. What an airport, guys. One of the best, if not one of the most exciting airports in the world. And what we're going to do is fly past it to then circle around so that we're landing into the wind. Generally, that's how you want to land planes. If you've got a tailwind, there's a whole load of terrible things that can happen. It is possible. Interestingly, some airfields, you can only land on them one way. So if the wind's blowing behind you and that's the direction that you need to land, well, that's the only choice you have. Google that and watch on YouTube for some incredibly hair-raising and exciting videos. But we don't have to do that in this case, so we're just going to go past it. I'd like to apologise for this landing in advance, and also I'd like to recommend you all fill out your life insurance and waiver forms. Landing gear has gone down there. Really nice vibration in our joystick from that, forcing back joystick, and we also use SimHub with this so we can feel the flaps. And what we're also doing now is we've got the air brakes up, so that slows down the glider so that we actually do descend. We could keep going for another 10 miles at this altitude. So we're using the air brakes to get rid of some speed. When we point down, it speeds up. Air brakes stop us from going too fast. We've not quite got this right. Apologies, we're getting better at landing. You have to land a glider using the brakes, kind of like a jet plane landing, as opposed to like a Cessna. It's really weird how you land gliders, but it's really, really good fun using the brake. Unfortunately, we've still not mastered it yet. Make sure you watch us in our next live stream. We're getting better at this. But we make a final turn here, overly aggressive, and we've just realised that the airport is on top of a hill and we're a little bit too low. Whoops. But, we take the brake off, we nose up, we're now dangerously low in airspeed, and this could go very badly. But I think we're just about okay. We've got sort of 55 knots of airspeed. You will notice, though, we have quite a long distance to the airport facilities. We're a bit short. But you only get one chance in a glider, so let's try and just woggle the glider down. Nice and tidy here. We've got the extension shaft on the Moser. That helps us be even additionally precise. Look at that grass, and there we go. Bonk it down, and then whilst on the ground, you're still flying the glider to try and make sure the wings don't hit the ground, using the joystick to keep the wings level and your rudder pedals to actually steer the glider, which is very confusing if you do a lot of sim racing. So, as far as landings go, we survived. It wasn't a very good landing, and we're a long way away from the airport facilities, so that's a uphill push off the glider, and also terrible technique. We'll be interested to see if we can improve that. But I was really happy. Our spine is intact, the grass looks amazing, and as far as I'm concerned, we completed the mission. If you want to try this for yourself, which you should do because it's amazing, download the weather packs in the description, and we're just using 10 knot wind. You can see SSC3 017 with a 10 knot wind, and you could just do the mission yourself if you want. Absolutely fantastic. Only thing to say is to thank you guys for watching this. If you got to the end, can we have a triple teapot emoji so I know that you survived this video to the end? Let me know what else you'd like to see, or if you have other recommended flights you'd like us to do in a glider, some like interesting challenges. It's always good and interesting to see what we can do. But until the next one, guys, thank you very much for watching. Happy tea drinking. Take care. And goodbye.